Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to our final car review from update 1.26. This time the very much controversial Silvia Aero, the S14 model. Obviously we recently had the Zenki version only a couple of updates ago, so this car pretty much got absolutely roasted when it was revealed. However, I'm going to review it anyway and see really if it is a step up from the Zenki that we previously had in GT7. So let's head over to the used car dealership to see just how much this costs. So it costs 60,000 credits, which is really not bad at all. As you can see, it's putting out 216 brake horsepower. I believe pretty much it's identical to the Zenki version which we had. I believe that was also the same price as this one here. However, you will notice it's basically just a facelifted, more aggressive looking version. And in all honesty, in my opinion, this should have been the car that came instead of the Zenki. Now it's each to their own, of course. Some people will prefer the Zenki version we have, some people will prefer this one, the Aero version. In my honest opinion, the Aero version is more iconic. It's definitely, in my opinion, the best looking Silvia ever made, even above the likes of an S13 and even the S15. I feel like it kind of hits that middle ground with typical, JDM styling of the 90s, whilst also having that bit extra aggression to it with the added, Aero kit that's on this car. But how does it handle compared to the Zenki? Well, I'm not going to really show you around the full lap because, to be honest, they're very, very similar. Both cars being extremely drivable and extremely stable. In all honesty, I feel like the Aero version was just that bit better. It feels like it absolutely sticks to the track and you can really throw it through the corners without it really, going uneasy on you essentially and throwing you in the barrier. In all honesty, I feel like you can push this car to its limits more than most cars, especially road cars within GT7. I really enjoyed doing my lap with this car. I was pleasantly surprised, but then I also kind of remembered back to being in the Zenki version and feeling the same really. They are a very joyous car to drive in my honest opinion. I feel like the S14 Silvias are just absolutely stunning to look at. But this Aero version is definitely a step up in terms of its styling. It's a lot more aggressive looking. It's probably the one that you remember when you think S14 Silvia. In my honest opinion, it's absolutely stunning. And like I said, it should have been here before the Zenki version. I feel like the Zenki, already coming in very close to this one, was kind of taking away the hype from this car coming in the game. It's been a mainstay of Gran Turismo games for the longest time, and it's great to see it in Gran Turismo 7. I will eventually do a full comparison on all of the Nissan Silvias within the game, from road versions to race versions. I feel like it'd be very interesting to see where they all come at in their standard form. Honestly, I absolutely love this car. I cannot fault it, if I'm fully honest. As much as I was kind of unhyped from it because, again, it was another Silvia, as soon as I drove it, I felt, exactly at home in this car. I love the way it drives. The only kind of drawback, in my honest opinion, is a weird little quirk that you can't actually rev the car out. Once you hit the rev limiter, that is it. You need to change gear. You try and rev it anymore and it will just bounce off the limiter, which is a bit frustrating when you're trying to push as hard as you can in the corners. It means that you just have to do, a lot more gear changes than you naturally would with a lot of the other cars within GT7. And any car that I've, tested and reviewed so far never really had this issue. I don't believe the Zenki model had that issue either, but it just is what it is. In all honesty, I genuinely cannot fault this car, whether it's its looks, the feel of it, driving even in its standard form. Usually these kind of lesser powered older road cars, especially out of Japan, have a really odd behaviour to them. I wouldn't say necessarily odd, they just don't feel, as sporty as they once did when they were obviously in their prime in older Gran Turismo games, and you just kind of expect them to feel really sluggish and slow, but that just genuinely isn't the case with the S14 Aero. It really does behave, well, like an Aero car. In all honesty, it has that extra kind of, downforce and extra kind of speed that you feel like you're carrying through the corners in comparison to the other, S14 model, which is obviously the Zenki. If I had to pick between one of the two, I'd honestly say in its standard form I'd have to go for the Aero version. It just appeals to me more. It's more aggressive looking, it drives well, and in all honesty, it's probably my all-time favourite Silvia. I just can't really, look away from it. It's such a good looking machine. But that is our lap done. As you can see, we did a few nice little celebration donuts. So let's go and check out the interior of this car. And in all honesty, it's nothing special. It's just typical bland 90s interior. Nothing to really stand out. You know, I believe the interior is pretty much the same as the Zenki version from what I can remember of that car. In all honesty, it's difficult to kind of keep track of which car's got which interior. One thing to note though, that I found really weird with this in-car camera is just the way the vents actually curve on the door. That being on, obviously on the left hand side, like you can see it coming into focus every now and again, it just seems like a really kind of weird design choice, pretty quirky, but in all honesty, there's nothing to really shout about in the interior of the Aero version of the S14. So overall, we did our lap in 8 minutes 27.964, and that puts it literally just above the Type S, which is the 1994 version. That's the Zenki model. Only a couple of months ago, that did that in 8 minutes 29.212. So it appears that the kind of facelift and the added aero to the car really did help it get around this lap just that bit better. So only around about a second and a bit in it, which isn't anything extreme, but it does mean that the aero version comes in ahead. However, we couldn't just leave this car as it was. We had to go absolutely crazy. So we went full-blown Nismo version on this thing. And honestly, just like the Zenki, it's an absolute flamethrower. I fully recommend taking these two cars out at night at Tokyo to just watch them absolutely spit flames all over the place. It's absolutely awesome, and it does impress people when you're in online lobbies. That's one of the first things I seem to do with the S14 model Silvias is just take them in and start making a flamethrower of these cars. So let's go hit up the high speed ring for our modified lap. So here we go, we're going to take off. Now in terms of its top speed, it's not reaching anything absolutely ridiculous. This is as fully upgraded as I could get the car, you know, bar any kind of, you know, special roulette ticket parts. So it was hitting upwards of around about 182 miles an hour. Now one thing to note, that even with max downforce on this thing to try and keep it stable, it really isn't the most stable of cars, especially at high speed. And kind of when the banking's there, it does have a, you know, a kind of knack to want to throw itself around and just kind of spin you out and chuck you in the barrier. It's a whole different machine in comparison to its standard form. However, in terms of typical 90s JDM looks, it doesn't get as really as iconic as these the S14 Silvia with the full aero kit on. I think it absolutely, you know, is a typical JDM cars of the 90s, very respected, very kind of sought after. In my honest opinion, if I could own any version of the Silvias, I'd love to get my hands on one of these, and they're very difficult to get in my country anyway. There's not many of them left. So having the opportunity to drive a fully turbocharged, massive boosted S14 in Gran Turismo 7 with its full aero styling is just absolutely awesome. And honestly, I really cannot fault the car. Whether you want to drive it modified or stock, it's probably going to impress you either way. So overall, it came in 7th place, even with that kind of stability issues that I mentioned, beating the 911 Turbo, that's the 930 model from 1981, as well as a Volkswagen Scirocco R. As you can see, it's also absolutely wiped the floor with the other Silvia, which came in 11th place with a 1 minute 11.652, so just over a second gap between them around the high speed ring. So it appears that the Aero version is much better modified than the Zenki model. So there we have it. That is all my car reviews for update 1.26. I thought I'd save the Silvia to the last, whilst to most people it's, you know, an absolutely awful addition because it's another Silvia. In my honest opinion, it's the best Silvia that was ever made by Nissan. I honestly love the styling cues. I love the way it drives, whether it's stock, modified. In all honesty, for 60,000 credits, you can't really beat it. So there we have it. That is all of my car reviews done for update 1.26 within Gran Turismo 7. I hope you've enjoyed them. I will be reviewing obviously the other cars as we try and review every single car in the game eventually. We've got a long way to go yet, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of those episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check the description for my links to my Twitter and my Discord, where you can meet like-minded players and just join in my little community that I've got going on. So that's going to be it. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful day. Peace.